Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Conversation Practice Podcast.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you all again.
I'm Sophie, and as always, I'm here to chat and practice English with you.
And I'm Alex. We hope you're having a calm and cozy day wherever you are. If you enjoy this peaceful style of English practice, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps us continue making these conversations.
Today, we're talking about something that many of our listeners find a bit stressful: job interviews.
Oh, yes, job interviews. They can be exciting, but also a little nerve-wracking, right?
Absolutely. But don't worry, we're going to chat about it in a relaxed way, like two friends just sharing stories and tips. No stress, no pressure.
So, Sophie, let me start with a little story. The first time I went to a job interview, I was so nervous that I forgot my own phone number.
Oh no, that's classic. I can relate though. My first interview, I completely blanked on the answer to a very simple question. Tell me about yourself.
Exactly. These things happen, and that's what we want to talk about today. How to feel more comfortable, how to talk naturally, and just how to survive the small talk and questions.
Right, so let's start with the beginning. Usually, interviews start with greetings, small talk, that little chat before the serious questions.
Yes, and I always think it's helpful to have a few simple sentences ready, like, "It's nice to meet you," or "Thank you for having me today." But it's more than just memorized lines. It's about being relaxed and friendly.
Absolutely. And sometimes the small talk can be about the weather, your commute, or even something in the office. I remember one time the interviewer asked me if I like coffee. I said, yes, I do, especially in the morning. It helps me wake up. And we both laughed. It made the start of the interview feel so easy.
That's a perfect example. Just sharing a small, simple detail about yourself makes it feel more human. You don't have to be perfect, you just need to be friendly.
Exactly. And speaking of details, it's good to have a little story ready about your experience, hobbies, or something related to the job. Nothing long or fancy, just a short example.
For instance, if they ask about teamwork, you can say something like, "In my last job, I worked with a team on a small project, and we supported each other to finish on time. It was really rewarding."
Simple, clear, and friendly. And notice how Alex didn't make it complicated. He just shared a personal experience. That's what interviewers really like to hear.
Yes, and Sophie, I always feel a little calmer when I remember that interviewers are humans too. They've probably been nervous at some point, just like us.
Exactly. And that's why we're keeping this conversation gentle and cozy, so you can hear real examples, not just lists of phrases.
So, shall we move on to the next part of the interview conversation?
Yes, let's. We'll talk about common questions, and I'll share a little story about a tricky question I once had.
Great. And we'll keep it relaxed, don't worry.
So, Alex, you mentioned the small talk at the beginning. Let's move on to the questions they usually ask after that. One that comes up a lot is, can you tell me about your strengths and weaknesses?
Ah, yes, the classic question. I always found it tricky at first. I wasn't sure how honest I should be.
Me too. But, the key is to be honest, but in a positive way. For example, if your weakness is being a perfectionist, you can say, sometimes I focus too much on details, but I'm learning to balance quality with speed.
That's clever. I remember once I said my weakness was being shy. The interviewer actually smiled and said, "That's okay. Many people are shy at first, but it's about how you grow in your role." That made me feel so much better.
Exactly. And it's always good to follow a weakness with what you're doing to improve. It shows self-awareness.
And for strengths, I usually like to give simple examples, like, "I'm very organized." For example, in my last job, I managed a project with multiple deadlines and everything finished on time.
That's perfect. Short, clear, and personal. I think stories like that make your strengths feel real, not just words on a paper.
Yes, and another question I often get asked is about past experience. They might say, "Tell me about a time you solved a problem at work."
I love those questions because they let you tell a story. I remember once I was asked this, and I shared about a time when a project deadline changed suddenly. I explained how I worked with my team to adjust our plan and still meet the deadline. They really liked that example.
That's a great one. I had a similar situation where a client changed their request at the last minute. I had to quickly adapt and communicate with my team. It was stressful, but the interviewer seemed impressed.
Exactly. And even small stories work. You don't need to save the whole company, just a personal example that shows your skills.
And what about tricky questions, like, why do you want to work here?
I usually answer that with a mix of honesty and interest. For example, I like this company because of its focus on teamwork and creativity. I feel I could contribute my skills and also learn a lot.
That's good. I always try to add a little personal touch, too. I once said, I really like your office's community projects. I'm passionate about helping people, and it feels like a good fit.
See? Small personal touches make your answer feel natural and memorable.
And honestly, just thinking of it as a conversation helps. It's not an interrogation, it's a chat about your experience, skills, and interests.
Yes, I always remind myself of that. If you imagine it as a friendly chat, it's easier to stay calm and speak naturally.
I also like to add a tiny bit of humor if it feels right. Once, I joked lightly about how nervous I was, and the interviewer laughed. It immediately made the room feel less tense.
That's a great tip. A little smile or light humor can make a big difference. It shows confidence and warmth without being forced.
Definitely. And now that we've talked about strengths, weaknesses, and stories about experience, maybe we can go deeper into specific questions people get, like, how do you handle difficult situations?
Perfect. I have a story for that too. Remember the time I had a problem with a miscommunication at work?
Oh, yes, I remember that story. Let's dive in.
So, Alex, about that tricky situation I mentioned, it was when my team misunderstood an important email from a client. Everyone was stressed, and I had to step in and clarify things.
Oh, yes, I remember. You told them, let's sit together and fix this step by step. That's such a calm approach.
Exactly. And in the interview, I shared that story. I explained how I stayed calm, communicated clearly, and solved the problem with my team. They seemed to really like that example.
I love stories like that. They show problem solving and teamwork without sounding like a lecture.
Right. And even small examples count. Like maybe you had a misunderstanding with a coworker or a minor scheduling conflict. You can explain how you handled it, and that's enough to show your skills.
Definitely. And speaking of minor things, I once had an interview where they asked, what motivates you? I was nervous at first, but I just talked about small things, like learning new skills, helping my team, and achieving little wins each day.
That's a good approach. Motivation doesn't have to be dramatic, it can be simple and honest.
Yes, and you can also connect it to the job. Like, I'm motivated by solving problems and helping customers, which is why I'm excited about this role.
Perfect. And I think it's important to remember that the interviewer wants to see your personality too. They want to know if you'll fit in with the team.
Exactly. One time, I was asked about my hobbies. I said I enjoy painting and going on walks. It seemed unrelated, but the interviewer smiled and said, that's great. You seem balanced and creative.
Yes, sharing small personal details makes you memorable. You're more than your CV, right?
Definitely. And that brings me to another point. Questions about challenges or mistakes. People get nervous about this, but it's really just a chance to show growth.
Exactly. I usually say something like, I made a mistake in a project once, but I learned to double-check details and communicate better with my team. It helped me grow.
That's perfect. And don't worry if it's a small mistake. It's not about being perfect. It's about showing learning and improvement.
Right. And Alex, remember the time you shared that story about a difficult client?
Oh, yes. I told them the client changed their requirements last minute, but I stayed calm, listened carefully, and adjusted the plan. It was simple, but the interviewer appreciated the example.
Exactly. These stories work because they are real, easy to understand, and show your skills naturally.
And while we're on stories, let's not forget the importance of expressing interest in the company. A small sentence like, "I admire your company's focus on teamwork and learning," can make a big difference.
Absolutely. It shows you've thought about the company and that you want to be part of the team.
You know, Sophie, I think the key is to imagine the interview as a friendly conversation, not a test. Share stories, smile, and be yourself.
That's exactly it. And next, we can talk about some useful words and phrases people can naturally use during interviews, not as a lesson, just as part of our conversation.
Perfect. I have a few favorites I use all the time. Let's go through them in our next part.
So, Alex, let's talk about some words and phrases that can naturally come up during an interview.
Sounds good. One phrase I often use is, "I look forward to." For example, "I look forward to contributing to your team." It's simple but polite and positive.
Yes, and I like using I enjoy when talking about tasks or skills, like I enjoy problem solving or I enjoy working with a team. It's friendly and confident without sounding forced.
Another phrase I like is, "I'm passionate about." It can be about work, learning, or even helping others. I think it shows energy and interest without being too much.
Absolutely. And little phrases like, for example, are super helpful. You can tell a short story and then say, for example, last month and it feels natural.
Right. And also words like challenge, improve, and experience come up a lot. You don't need fancy words, just simple ones used naturally.
Yes, and even saying, I've learned or I've improved after sharing a story shows growth. Interviewers love to hear that.
Speaking of learning, Sophie, what about questions we can ask the interviewer? Like, can you tell me more about the team? Or what's a typical day like?
Those are great. Asking questions shows you're interested and engaged. It's also a nice way to keep the conversation going.
Exactly. And sometimes small talk at the end is just as important as answers. You can say, "Thank you for your time," or "It was great meeting you today." It leaves a friendly impression.
Definitely. And before we finish today, we have our question of the day for everyone listening.
Right. Here it is. What's one skill or strength you want to show in your next job interview? Think about it, and maybe share it in the comments if you like.
Yes, it's a nice way to reflect a little. And remember, interviews are not just about tests. They're about sharing who you are, your experiences, and your personality.
That's the cozy part, isn't it? Just imagine it as a chat with someone curious about your story.
Exactly. And to wrap up our conversation, we hope today's chat has given you some ideas and confidence for your next interview.
Yes. Remember, small stories, honest answers, friendly phrases, and a smile go a long way.
And if you enjoyed this calm, cozy English practice, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and click the bell icon so you don't miss future conversations.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We loved chatting with you, and we hope it helps you feel more confident in English and in interviews.
Take care, stay cozy, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone. Keep practicing, and remember, interviews are just friendly conversations at heart.